Dear students, let us start the discussion on today's newspaper, that is 19th April 2017. The first article, Lonely and Disinterested. The emphasis of this article is India is losing a macro view of diplomacy by focusing on bilateralism. In this context, there are many developments which are occurring in its neighborhood on which it is losing control, and there is a greater chance that it can get isolated. So, a refocus of our diplomacy is being suggested through this article. What are the things which are developing in our neighborhood? One is Islamic military alliance is coming up. It is backed by Saudi Arabia, and most of the Sunni nations are members of this Islamic military alliance. And the former chief of Pakistani army, he is expected to head this. Mr. Sharif is expected to head this. And second is there is an axis which is developing, that is Russia, China, and Pakistan axis. So Russia, which is a close friend of India, it is slowly moving towards China. And you know that during the Cold War era, Russia, China did not have very good relations. Now Russia has become the major exporter of the arms to China. It is also involved with technology transfer. And Russia and Pakistan also signed a strategic agreement and are conducting the joint military exercises. So, in these circumstances, Russia did not agree to call Pakistan as a terror state. And on the other side, these three countries are also engaging on Afghanistan. So, they are keeping the Afghanistan peace process on track through reconciliation with the Taliban. And it is against the stand of India. And then, if we carefully observe, the SARC is slowly losing its steam. And all the countries in South Asia, these are getting connected through One Belt, One Road initiative. And India is the only country which is not a participant to One Belt, One Road initiative. Though China has repeatedly said to India that China's Kashmir position is no way connected with One Belt, One Road initiative, India has its own apprehensions. And finally, India and its neighborhood is getting, or India do not have the sufficient finances to bring in a grand connectivity plan like OBOR. So, India need to take all these factors into cognizance whenever it makes its diplomatic efforts. That's what is this article talks about. After the referendum, this article is related to the developments in Turkey. You know that the Turkey is facing a problem of cessationism of Kurds. There is a demand for the autonomy of the Kurds in southeast region. So the southeast borders with Syria, Kurds in Syria and Kurds in Turkey want for an autonomous region. And Mr. Erdogan is very much critical about them, and he has used indiscriminate and disproportionate force against them. And then the society of Turkey is also very much divided, and it is clearly visible in the referendum. Most of the rural population voted in favor of Erdogan or referendum, and urban population, all three major cities, they have rejected the referendum. So this shows the clear divide. So in this context, the referendum, it provides for sweeping powers to the president. It abolishes the parliamentary system and prime minister's office. Now the president will become the head of the government and the head of the state. The military, judiciary, these also positions also will be determined by the president. It means the president in Turkey is about to become a sultan. So he is going to become all powerful. Checks and balances, separation of powers are going to suffer. Obviously, this will have its repercussions on Kurdistan movement. And second is, Mr. Erdogan can get elected as the president till 2029 unabated. And finally, the entire region is also expected to be destabilized if authoritative tendencies of Erdogan continues. Now, Mr. Erdogan has declared that he is no more intended to bring Turkey into the European Union. And European Union is facing the challenge of immigrants. Now, the resurgent Turkey under Erdogan, it may not take the immigrants back from the European Union, and the situation may get worsened over there. So now, the article's endpoint is this. The referendum in Turkey clearly shows the cleavages existing in the society. Next is equity in debt. Now, in this case, recently NK Singh committee was constituted, and last year's budget, Mr. Jaitley has clearly stated that FRBM Act need to be revised. The NK Singh committee, it has recommended for a new debt law or debt or fiscal responsibility law, which has to create a fiscal council. What are the responsibilities of this fiscal council? They have to oversee that the government maintains the fiscal prudence. And this 3% of the fiscal target, fiscal deficit target shall be continued till 2019-20. By 2023, it has to come down to 2.5% and revenue deficit has to come down to 0.8%. And then debt to GDP ratio, it has become much important variable now, and it shall come down to 60% by 2023. These are the targets. There is also an escape clause. What is this escape clause is? If there are extraordinary circumstances, on the recommendation of the fiscal council, subjected to the opinion of fiscal council, 0.5% of relaxation comes for the government with regard to fiscal deficit. So because of this fiscal prudence, inflation will be under control, and also the crowding out of capital from the private sector can be avoided. And next is lines of defense. So here we will be discussing about the EVMs. So EVMs are very much criticized, saying that they are getting tampered. There are many technical and procedural safeguards in EVMs, and Election Commission has repeatedly demonstrated them. So, in spite of this, the parties continued their allegations. So the way out is Election Commission has to make them foolproof and also has to demonstrate the political parties the same. In this context, VVPATs, voter verifiable paper audit trail. It means after you make your vote, you will get a confirmation. You can see the confirmation and you can drop that in the ballot box. So this VVPAT are going to be installed along with the EVMs. But it comes at a cost around 3,000 plus crore rupees have to be spent for the same. So some parties are asking to move back to the ballot paper. Remember that the voter participation and then rigging and other irregularities in the elections have come down due to EVMs. So that's why any movement backwards towards ballot papers is a retrogressive step. That is what is the article emphasizes. Let's come to the OpenNet page. There is no negativity about AAP. So here we need to remember few things. The Delhi government do not have the complete powers. The Delhi government is stuck between the Municipal Corporation of Delhi and the Union government. Regulatory functions, most of them are the Union government, and MCD has the most of the functions related to roads, sanitation, etc. And added to that, Delhi Development Authority, it is a parastatal body. In between these three stuck the Delhi government. So the Delhi government has control only on water, electricity, drinking, that is education and health. So with regard to health, the most successful and internationally studied thing is the Mohalla clinics. So these Mohalla clinics and free drugs and screening practices in the Mohalla clinics, these are being applauded. So that's why I want to take you the Mohalla clinics as a study, leaving the politics apart. So here you can quote the Delhi's accountability deviance. What I mean that the Lieutenant Governor in Delhi enjoys a huge authority as representative of the center, and then he has no accountability to the people. Elected government has accountability to the people without powers. So accountability and power got dissociated from each other in Delhi. That's what we need to talk about over here. Now, let's get into the news page. Center promises election reforms. Especially, there is a bill filed in Supreme Court with regard to not allowing the criminals into the elections. So, as of now, 6 years or plus period, 4 years plus period of conviction. This is what is the time which is not been allowed for. That is, period of conviction plus 6 years it is not been allowed for. Now, there has to be a complete ban. That's what is being recommended over here. And then new data safety regime. So as India is getting more and more digitalized, data safety framework is necessary. In India, we do not have a data safety framework. So the try is trying to bring in this data safety norms in India by this Deepavali. So in this article, they spoke about right to forget. If you recollect in our class, we discussed about the right to forget movement in European Union, UK, USA. And right to forget is very clear and is part of the right to privacy of the citizen. So this right to forget also is about to come up in India. It means if you don't want to have your information in Google or Facebook, they are bound to delete that information. And then the UK announces for elections. Theresa May wants to have a greater legitimacy to take decisions with regard to Brexit, and she has announced for elections. And then CPEC is unrelated to Kashmir issue. So India don't want to participate in OBOR, stating that it is passing through the Pak-occupied Kashmir. And Beijing has assured India that the CPOBOR is unrelated to the Kashmir issue and Beijing stand on the Kashmir issue. So that's what is being stated over here. And let's come to the recollection page. So the lonely and disinterested. So what is the emphasis of this article? India has to take a broader perspective on international relations, and India is lost in the regional negotiations which are going on, and the SARC has lost its stream. And then after the referendum in Turkey is going to make the president all powerful. The checks and balances are going to get diluted. Now, the next is equity in depth. It is about NK Singh committee's recommendations. So NK Singh committee has recommended for a 3% target, and added to that, the deficit numbers has to be 2.5 to 0.8% by 2023. Debt to GDP ratio, it has to come down to 60% from the existing 68%. So these are the various recommendations. And the next is, let's go to the lines of defense. Only remember, voter verifiable paper audit trail, that is the word you need to remember over here. So with regard to the Delhi, accountability and authority are got dissociated. That is what is the major claim of that is Chief Minister Mr. Kejriwal. And then CPEC is unrelated to Kashmir. So in the OBOR context, the China is talking about that. And a new data safety regime is going to come in India by Deepavali. That is what is the TRI is stating. So these are the articles for today. Thank you very much and all the best.